Hello, everyone. I'm here to talk to you today about something that everybody loves, or maybe everybody hates, or everybody loves to hate, I don't know. I'm here to talk to you about the science fair. And usually people get all excited about, oh, it's going to be so fun. We get to do all these science things at the science fair until you don't do anything until the night before. And then you maybe, but your parents especially, now hate the science fair because now you're running to Walmart to buy something at the last minute to try to throw something together to be a science fair project. And maybe that's why everybody hates it. But I'm here to help you get through the science fair from beginning to end in a way that's going to make you really love doing a science fair. And you're also not going to be stuck at the last minute trying to get everything done. So let's jump right in and go ahead and get started with the science fair. So, of course, the first thing everybody thinks when you think science fair project is, oh, we have to make a volcano. Well, here's the thing. Let me show you something real quick. I'm going to show you what happens when you try to make a volcano. So to make a volcano, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little baking soda, and I'm not even going to measure because we know what's going to happen, and that's my point. And I'm not really worried about what kind of volcano I make. I'm just making a volcano for the science fair. Some recipes say to put in a little dishwashing liquid to make it a little thicker, and a little bit of water. So the next step, everybody knows, going to make it a little easier to pour down in the container that I have. The next step everybody knows is that we add vinegar. Do you know what's going to happen when we add vinegar? If you do, go ahead and say it. Let's try and see. Look, we made a volcano. We should have mixed it up so that the dishwashing liquid would have mixed up in with it, but that's okay. We still made a volcano. And until our baking soda is used up, we could keep making a volcano. The point is, I knew, and I think a lot of you out there knew, we knew what was going to happen before we did this. Is this a good science fair experiment? No. And do you know why? The reason is exactly because we knew what was going to happen before we did it. See, science is about learning new things. And that's what you need to do for a science fair project, not something that you already know what's going to happen. So do you think I'm telling you that you can't make a volcano for a science fair project? No, I'm not telling you that. I'm just telling you that if you do, you have to do something different with it. One time I did have one of my students make a volcano for a science fair project, but she had heard that if you use Mentos and Diet Coke, that works better than using baking soda and vinegar. So her science fair was not just making a volcano. Her science fair was, I made this volcano so it looks like a volcano, and I tested with baking soda and vinegar, and I tested with Mentos and Diet Coke. And I don't remember exactly what she did. Somehow she measured how big, how she used the same amount of things, or she thought she did, because it's hard to tell how much Mentos you're using compared to how much baking soda you're using. Vinegar and Diet Coke, you could use exactly the same amount, but the Mentos and baking soda, you get into a problem with how do you compare these two things. But she tried to use the same amounts, and then she tried to measure how tall each thing made the volcano, or how big it spread out, or how much there was when it was left over. And you can do something like that. Don't do exactly hers because she's already done that. Think of something else that you could try. But the point is that she didn't just make a volcano for the science fair. She had a question in her mind. And the question was, which works better, vinegar and baking soda or Mentos and Diet Coke? And she tried to answer that question. So the first thing that you have to do if you're going to do a science fair project is come up with something that is the perfect topic for you to use for your science fair project. And it can be anything. It can be anything that you are interested in. You can come up with a science fair project about that. And you say, no, it can't be anything. But let me tell you, I had one of my students one time do their science fair project on video games. Do you know what they did? They had a question in their mind. They had heard that if you play fast action shoot 'em up video games or fast action driving video games or whatever, they had heard that it improves your reflexes. So what they did, I don't know if you've ever seen anybody do this before, but there's a thing that you can sort of test your reflexes. It's gives you a number, even if it's not the best way, but you have somebody else hold the ruler so that the end of the ruler is right at your finger, but the other person drops it, and wherever the ruler falls to, you record that measurement, and that's your reflexes. But you'd have to do it a bunch of times, like you'd have to do it 10 times and get an average of where it fell to, average those numbers out so that you get one number that you can say, hey, this is how good my reflexes are. Well, what this person did, who was my student, he went home and he played video games every day. But before he played the video games every day, he did this test with his reflexes. He got somebody to drop the ruler probably about 10 times, and he averaged out what his reflexes were before playing the video games every day. And then he would play video games for, I don't know, 30 minutes or an hour or something like that. And he would test his reflexes at the end about 10 times, and he would average out what was the number for that day, that was his number for his reflexes. And he did this for a period of about 2 weeks or a month. I don't remember which one it was. And at the end of the time, he was looking at the numbers to see, did the numbers keep going up? Did his reflexes get better and better as he played the video game? Or did they not? Did they stay the same? Or did they get worse? Or whatever. But his question was, does video games improve your reflexes? Now, let me tell you this, in both cases, I believe that the girl found out that Mentos and Diet Coke did not work as well as baking soda and vinegar. Does that mean her science fair project was bad? Absolutely not. Her science fair project was great, and she put on there that I was wrong. Vinegar and baking soda does work much better than Diet Coke and Mentos. I believe that's what she found. But the point of the science is you find out the answer to the question, and whether you were right or wrong, you say, hey, I learned something. I found out the answer. But the point is to find something that you're interested in. I've had people do science fair projects with basketball, and the angle of how they shoot, does it improve it? I've had people do science fair projects. Oh, and with the basketball, they even did things with tall and short people to see if it really is true that taller people are able to hit the basket more often than the shorter people. I've had people do simple projects, just it was probably just the only thing they could think of, but they were testing a walkie-talkie through different types of walls. They learned this is how you do a science fair project. You have a topic, and then you have a question, and then you come up with an experiment that answers your question, yes or no. And for them, it answered their question. I can't remember the other topics that I've had students do, but I've had students do all kind of things. Basically, whatever the topic is that you find fun or that you find interesting, you can probably come up with a science fair project to do around that, and not have your mom and dad running to Walmart the night before at midnight to buy vinegar and baking soda so you can make a volcano. But we've got to get started, and we've got to do it ahead of time. So the first thing we need to do for you to be able to create a science fair project is that we need to find the best topic for you, the topic that you want to use. And you could do this on paper if you wanted to, but one place that you can do it so that you can have it and it will be nice and you don't have to worry about it falling off the edges of the paper, and you won't have to worry about, can I read it later? Did I use good handwriting when I was doing it? The best place that I know of to do this is this place called Bubble.us, bubble.us. And I will link this down in the description of the video, but you'll be able to just go here by typing bubbl.us, and that will take you to this website. Now, when you get to this website, you could register. I'm going to click register right here just to show you that there is a free account you can register for. The only problem with that is you do have to have an email address. So if you don't have an email address, that could be a problem. There are also accounts that you pay for that you could register for that give you more options, of course.
If you were going to register, I would just say just register for the free one. But I'm also going to show you that today you don't even have to register. It's going to make it so that we can't save it when we get finished. Well, we can't save it and come back to it. I can save it just as a picture that I have to look at later. So I'm going to click this green button that says start without signing in, and the button says start now. I'm going to click the green button, and that's going to take me to a page where I can go ahead and just get started. Now, I can change some of these things if I want to. Like, I can change the background to something that makes things show up better. I'm going to put it black with a yellow buttons. But in the middle, we're basically going to make a word web that will tell us what I find interesting, what you find interesting. So in the middle of this, I'm going to just highlight these words that say start here, and I'm going to type things that I find fun or interesting. Okay? And once I type that, I'm just going to start making other bubbles around it of things that I find fun or interesting. Now, you can't see me do it, but if I hold down the control key and hit enter, it will actually pop out a bubble from this one. So on this one, I'm going to say, I like to read. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to click things I find fun or interesting again. Notice it tells you here you can do control enter. Just click up here again and do control enter, and it'll pop another one out. And I'll say I like to code computers. I like to, let's go back to the main one, and I can also click the plus sign and it will pop another one out. And I like to travel. Let me think. Now this isn't necessarily going to be, I did that one in the wrong place, so I'm going to click this button and delete it because I didn't really mean to do that. I meant to go back to the beginning. I'm going to do some of the things that some of you might like to do. You might say, I like sports. Let's go back up here to the top again, make another bubble. Some of you might say, I like playing video games. I do too. Go back to the top and make another bubble. Some of you might say, I like doing crafts. Some of you might say, I like taking care of animals. So anything you can think of that you might find fun or interesting, go ahead and put it out like this. But then you're going to come back and you're going to look at some of these things and you're going to say, well, what is it? What are some things that are related to this that I might like? Like if you like sports, I'm going to click on the sports and do control enter. So I have a bubble coming from the sports. Maybe I particularly like basketball. Or go back up here. Maybe I do control enter. And maybe I particularly like football. Under video games, maybe I particularly like farming games. I don't know if anybody does or not. Maybe I particularly like puzzle games. If I go back to, and I'm just using my mouse to drag this around. If I go to taking care of animals, maybe I particularly like, I'm clicking taking care of animals and I'm going to do control enter. Maybe I particularly like fish. Under reading, what type of books do I like to read? Maybe I like to read books about science, which just got me back to science anyway. Don't know if that's real helpful or not, but put everything on here, whether you think it's helpful or not. Maybe I like to read books about history. And I just keep adding things on. I like to, I'm trying to think of something to go on here. Maybe I like to raise fish. I don't know. Maybe with taking care of animals, I like shearing sheep. Maybe I want to go back to the beginning because maybe I forgot to put on here that I really like cooking. And maybe with cooking, I like, control enter from the cooking, I like baking cakes. Or maybe with cooking, control enter, I like grilling. And maybe with grilling, I like to use a charcoal. But here's the point. You need to make a web of everything you find fun or interesting. Go ahead and put as many things as you can think on here, because in the next video, we're going to start trying to narrow some of these down and think of the ones that we like the best. As a matter of fact, what would be a really good thing to do is, now that you have it, like now that you have all these on here, let's just say that the one I really like to do is something about baking cakes. So I want to mark this one. I'm going to click this little highlight bubble, and I'm going to mark it a color that says this may be the one I really like to do. Since they're all green, I'm not going to use green. I'm going to use this purplish color to say this is the one. Oh, I did not mean to do that. I'm going to use this purplish color to say this is the one I might really like to do. And maybe my next choice is something about playing farming games. Again, I don't know that everybody's going to like that at all, but I'm going to choose a lighter purple to say maybe that's my second choice, is about the farming game. So I can look and see, oh, here's my first choice, something about baking cakes. My second choice might be something about farming games. And maybe my third choice is something about football, and I'm going to make it a much lighter color. So you see what I've done here. I've made my 3 top choices, and I've let them get, I just picked a color that's not the same as the rest of the colors, and I've let them get lighter and lighter to show me here's my first choice, here's my second choice, and my third choice. And then tomorrow or the next time when I come back to this, it may make like life easier. Now that doesn't mean I can't pick travel instead. That doesn't mean I can't still keep adding to travel. But right now I'm thinking maybe these are my top 3 choices of the things I want to think about how to use these things to do a science fair project. So our next goal will be to narrow these down and come up with the one we want to use and a question that will work for that one. But for now, just use this word web, and you can figure out how to make a word web for yourself. Or it's not really a word web, it's more of a phrase web, but make a web for yourself that comes up with everything you can think of that you find fun or interesting. And just keep making this as big as you want to make it. I'm going to hold down Control and move my mouse wheel down. And when I do that, it makes it get smaller. Actually, I can go right here and I can do this slider so I can see all of it, even though I can't read the words. But to read the words, I can use this and make it get bigger. Oh, you don't have to hold Control. You can just use your mouse wheel without holding Control in this. But you can use your mouse wheel and make it smaller and bigger. And then once you have finished it all, because we're not paying for it, it won't let us share it. It won't let us save it as one that we can come back and look at tomorrow. But what it will let us save it as is save it as one of these, either a JPEG or a PNG image. And when I save it as a PNG image, but it comes down here under my downloaded files, and if I click on it to open it, I find out that I have a picture of exactly what I made. And I can still zoom in and see these things. Now, I won't be able to change it because I'm using an account that I didn't even register for, not even a free account that I registered for. I didn't even register for it. So I won't be able to make changes once I've saved it, but I will at least be able to see it when I come back and want to look at it tomorrow. So try making your web of the things you find fun or interesting, and then try saving it as a PNG or a JPEG so that you can still see it tomorrow. Now, if you want to use an email address and register for a free account, then you should be able to just save yours so that you can just come back into the same program and use it tomorrow. But otherwise, save it as a JPEG, then you'll have it. If you have access to a printer, you can even print it out if you want to, or just come back to your JPEG and look at it, or your PNG and look at it. But either way, make your word web so that we can start narrowing down what topic you can use for a science fair, and then watch for the next video where we will start coming up with which topic you actually want to use and how to come up with a question for that topic.